Good evening. I'm Jim Lara in Washington.
And I'm Margaret Warner in New York. After our summary of the news this Wednesday, we have a newsmaker interview with Secretary of State Christopher on Haiti, a progress report on reinventing government, a second look at the search for a breast cancer gene, and a farewell to the lost baseball season.
Major funding for the McNeil Lehrer NewsHour has been provided by the Archer Daniels Midland Company, ADM, supermarket to the world. And by New York Life, yet another example of the wise investment philosophy New York Life has been following for the last 150 years, and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and by the annual financial support from viewers like you.
President Clinton said again today it was time for the military leaders of Haiti to go. He accused them of human rights abuses and said there were no other alternatives left but military intervention. But he said the leaders could still leave on their own. Other administration officials said today U.S. troops will be in Haiti very soon. A second aircraft carrier sailed for Haiti. The USS Eisenhower left Norfolk, Virginia with nearly 2,000 U.S. troops aboard. The USS America left yesterday. Another 15 warships are already on patrol near Haiti. Deputy Secretary of State Trobe Talbot said a U.S.-led multinational force will take control in Haiti even if its military rulers do leave voluntarily. He said that will be necessary to prevent violence and disorder. At the White House, Press Secretary Dee Dee Myers talked about President Clinton's speech to the nation tomorrow night.
The goal of his speech is essentially threefold. First is to explain to the American people our interest in Haiti. Second is to describe the expanding coalition of nations and to explain the UN mission, which is limited in purpose and time. And finally, it's to send a clear and unambiguous message to the military leaders in Haiti that we will act if we must, and the time is getting very, very short for them to leave on their own.
Senate Minority Leader Bob Dole said today he did not think the president would be able to make the case for U.S. intervention, and Haiti policy was the subject of a Senate debate this afternoon.
Mr. President, I doubt that one American in 100, if not one in 1,000, can explain what the justification is for an invasion of Haiti. Mr. Aristide is not the kind of individual the United States should be putting its credibility behind and installing by force into a nation which does not want him back and which does not believe he can lead that country to democracy. It is an unwise course to risk American lives for so tenuous a national interest. I hope Congress will be given the opportunity to express its will on this invasion before it occurs, and I hope the President and his national security team will have the courage to change course.
Ultimately, the only permanent solution is a political solution in Haiti that is responsive to the Haitian people. That is what President Aristide represents, and that's why I happen to believe it's so important that we make every effort to try and seek his return.
We'll talk to Secretary of State Christopher about Haiti right after this news summary. Margaret?
Researchers have isolated one gene that causes hereditary breast cancer and discovered the existence of a second. The breakthrough means a test may be available within 1 year to help determine a woman's risk for developing the inherited form of the disease. Hereditary breast cancer accounts for only about 5% of all breast cancers, but identifying the 600,000 women at risk could help save their lives. One of the 3 teams involved in the research is based at the National Institutes of Health in Washington. This afternoon, Dr. Harold Varmus, director of NIH, spoke at a news conference.
This discovery brings us one step closer to devising a test that will be useful in making prognostic statements about the risk to any individual of developing breast cancer. Those tests would first be applied to women who have a strong family history, later perhaps to the general population. At present, the findings do not bear on diagnosis of cancer in someone who has a positive mammogram. They do not bear upon therapeutic strategies. Ultimately, they might, but at this point, they do not.
We'll have more on this story later in the program. Agriculture Secretary Mike Espy announced a plan today to tighten meat and poultry inspection. If the plan is approved by Congress, the meat and poultry industry would have to actually test their products for bacterial contamination, rather than rely on the current system of visual inspection.
This was the first anniversary of President Clinton's Reinventing Government initiative. Vice President Gore heads the program, which is designed to cut the federal workforce and make government run more efficiently. Mr. Clinton marked the occasion by cutting through a red tape on the White House lawn and by naming some of the program's accomplishments.
Since I became president, the size of the federal workforce has been reduced by 71,000 positions. The savings already enacted by Congress or undertaken by the executive branch will amount to $47 billion in this budget cycle, and we're on the way to saving $108 billion.
We'll have more on this story later in the program. Primary elections were held yesterday in 9 states in the District of Columbia. Among them, Minnesota's Republican Governor Arnie Carlson beat conservative challenger Alan Quist by an almost 2-to-1 margin, and former Washington, D.C. Mayor Marion Barry defeated 2 other Democratic candidates. His victory comes almost 4 years after serving a prison sentence for drug possession.
The rest of the 1994 baseball season was canceled today. The word came from acting baseball commissioner Bud Selig after he consulted with team owners. The players have been on strike since August 12th. This will be the first baseball season without a World Series since 1904. We'll have more on this story later in the program. In economic news, the Federal Reserve said today that economic activity continued to expand over the summer. The report comes from the so-called Beige Book, which reflects surveys done by the Fed's regional banks. And the Commerce Department reported today that retail sales rose 0.8% in August. Sales of automobiles and other big-ticket items sparked the advance.
That's it for the news summary tonight. Now it's on to Secretary of State Christopher, reinventing government, the breast cancer gene, and the end of the baseball season. We go first tonight to a newsmaker interview with Secretary of State Warren Christopher and to the subject of Haiti. Mr. Secretary, welcome.
Good evening, Jim.
Is it correct to say tonight that a U.S.-led military intervention in Haiti is a certainty?
Jim, there will be a U.S. military people in Haiti. That's a certainty. But the circumstances under which they enter there is still, I think, an alternative. That is to say, if the de facto leaders, if the military leaders in Haiti will leave as they ought to do, then we'll enter in a permissive environment. That's a much different circumstance. If they don't leave, we'll enter in a more difficult environment.
So it's still not too late for General Cedras and his folks to call somebody and say, okay, we got the message, we're out of here?
That's absolutely right. We hope they'll do that. That's the right thing for them to do in their own interest as well as in the interest of Haiti.
Are we in direct contact with General Cedras and his people?
Well, let me just say that the President's got a lot of options on that. We're going to leave no stone unturned to give them an opportunity to make that decision, which is the right decision for them.
Have we offered him any incentives other than threats to leave? In other words, monetary, free, safe passage somewhere, a great place in France, anything like that to get him out of there?
Jim, I've been saying, and others have been saying in the government, that if they decide to leave, we'll help them with the arrangements. The modality shouldn't be a problem, but what it takes is their decision to leave. I hope they'll make that within the very next few days.
As we sit here tonight, at this moment, Mr. Secretary, are there any indications at all that Cedras is seriously considering leaving anytime soon?
We don't have any such indications yet.
Are there ongoing talks aimed at finding out for sure? I don't mean to keep belaboring the point.
I don't want to get into detail on that, but let me just repeat that we're going to explore every option, every alternative. The President has a number of different ways of approaching that, and they will not fail to leave because of the failure of communication. If they want to communicate with us, we'll be available to them, and we're taking some special steps in that regard.
Special steps are being taken?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's assume that, for discussion purposes, that those special steps do not lead to Cedras and his people leaving. What kind of reception? What is the expectation of the reception that the U.S. troops will leave if it's a hostile situation?
Well, we are going to put in an overwhelming force, and I think the Haitian people will soon understand, that is, the Army and the police will soon understand that they're overwhelmed by that, and I would not expect any long period of fighting, but we're going to be prepared. Our military doesn't want to do this thing in a halfway measure, and we're not taking anything for granted. I would expect, though, that over the next few days after there is an intervention, the Haitian people would recognize
abuses in Haiti and an end to conditions which cause Haitians to migrate to the United States. Good night, Margaret.
Good night, Jim. That's the News Hour for tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night. I'm Margaret Warner. Good night.
Major funding for the McNeil-Lehrer News Hour has been provided by the Archer Daniels Midland Company. ADM, supermarket to the world. And by New York Life, yet another example of the wise investment philosophy New York Life has been following for the last 150 years. And by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and by the annual financial support from viewers like you.